crossroads, and above all of that, developing a nuclear bomb. And unlike what, let me go back one more time to our good vice president, in his debate, he said, well, the Iranians don't have the weapon to equip with nukes. Are you kidding me? The Pentagon report has said that the Iranian regime has developed long-term missiles that can hit our forces in the Gulf, our forces in the Eastern Mediterranean, that could hit Israel, that could hit many Arab countries, that could cover Europe and potentially develop an ICBM that would hit us here at home. So when that regime, that catastrophic regime, which brutalizes its own people as well as its own minorities, was challenged by 2 million people. And look at who was demonstrating in the streets of Tehran. 60% of the people who demonstrated were young people, under the age of 21, 20. About 30% of those were females. And you know the status of females in Iran, younger than 18. They lost one of them, they lost many, but one of them we know about, Neda, on YouTube. She's the symbol of the new resistance in Iran against the regime, a young girl. So when we had thousands and thousands of people marching in the streets of Tehran, chanting against the regime, they were not talking just about, we want to know the truth about elections. Of course, that's how it began. They were chanting, Obama, Obama, are you with us or are you with them? They were addressing our president. They were very serious about that. They had signs in English and in French and in German. So when you have this kind of situation whereby a population is about to rise, that was 2 years before the Arab Spring, it was to become an Iranian spring. Had that spring been successful, ladies and gentlemen, had that spring been successful, that regime would have collapsed, and his ally regime in Syria would have followed, and their ally in Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the other radical organization would have been completely isolated and lost their funding. That means half of the war on terror would have been won in one business week. Had we, the United States administration, had the president at that time, when he was called upon to say the words, the right words, they were not talking about no-fly zones, they were not talking about boots on the ground, they were just talking about talk to us. Instead, the statement that was issued from the White House and the administration was, we don't want to be seen as meddling in Iranian affairs. By whom? Who do we don't want to be seen by? By the Ayatollahs, of course. Because the policy of the administration for the previous year until now is to try, through pressure and through negotiations, to reach an agreement with the Iranian regime. That's why the entire architecture of U.S. policy since 2009 with regard to Iran is one of incomplete sanctions. You know, we have a debate in Washington all the time about these sanctions. And the Iranian opposition is the first one to tell us these sanctions cannot work because these sanctions don't have the design to bring down that regime. If you don't have the design to bring down that regime, so those sanctions have another design, which is to actually bring both sides to a table of negotiations and therefore settle issues. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, you've already guessed it. This is why the administration is not acting firmly on Syria. That's the reason. Because if you want to act firmly on Syria, you want to be ready to confront the Iranian regime from day one. So if you don't want to confront the Iranian regime, you can't confront the ally of the Iranian regime. Iraq. President Obama and his administration decided to withdraw, and I'm using the term of the governor now, very smart term, to withdraw abruptly from Iraq. The issue is not about withdrawal. We could have withdrawn probably in 2007 if you wanted. The issue is not, when and how. It's what do you leave behind you? If we crumble Saddam Hussein, try to help the Iraqi army, try to do what we've done, did the surge, paid money, paid blood, for a price, to leave behind us an Iraq that is an ally. An Iraq that would serve as a wall against Iranian influence into the Middle East. That's the purpose. What we've done was to dismantle the wall, pack out the wall, and leave. So what would that lead to? It would lead to a tidal wave coming from Iran into Iraq, into Syria. That's why we have Pasdaran in Syria. So obviously today, if you ask the administration, why aren't you intervening in Syria? Oh, because they are Pasdaran, and they are Hezbollah, and they are jihadis. Duh, if I may say in politics. We had a whole year between March of 2011 and December of 2011 to do all what we could have done to bring down the Assad regime, because it was encircled. Turkey from the north, 6 feet from the eastern Mediterranean, Jordan from the south, and a different Iraq from the east. It was boxed. And the civil society of Syria was pushing with demonstrations starting in Dira and elsewhere. Now, once we withdrew from Iraq and the Iranians linked up with the regime, it's a different ballgame, obviously. And if you don't even have an intention to deal with the influence of the Iranians, we're not going anywhere in Syria. This is why an alternative is needed. Governor Romney from day one, no game, no jokes. The problem is the Iranian regime. So we have a policy which is stated, which was published already last year in the Wall Street Journal article by the governor. Of course, in an article, you're not going to see all the details. You're going to have smart people saying, hey, what are you going to do? We're not going to reveal to the enemy what we're going to do. We're going to reveal to the enemy what is our objective with regard to the enemy. Governor Romney's policy with regard to Iran is very simple. We will partner with the Iranian people with all the consequences. So if there is a uprising in Iran, we will be standing with them. How? We're not going to tell you now. We're not going to let the Ayatollah be ready for that. Let them be ready for the idea that we will be standing with the Iranian people. We will be completely encircling the Iranian regime with much better sanctions. What kind of sanctions are these? If we put pressure on some of the countries to stop dealing with the Iranian regime, and then we give exceptions to others, such as India or China, that is not a sanction regime that is designed to crumble the regime. And I repeat myself, that is a sanction regime designed to talk to the regime. Going to Lebanon quickly, Joseph spoke about it, it's very clear. The Obama administration top counterterrorism officials, if you remember, 2.5 years, said that we are looking forward to deal with and find the moderate wing in Hezbollah. Governor Romney does not believe that there is a moderate wing in Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. It is in control of the national security or a large segment of the national security of Lebanon. It's very clear, very crystal clear. A policy towards Lebanon under a President Romney will be to do everything the United States can do so that all these militias will be disarmed and that the only force that would be in Lebanon would be the Lebanese army, period. Moving quickly to Egypt, and I know that speakers have spoken about Egypt, it's also clear. And the governor has mentioned, and I was probably surprised at the time, he even mentioned that instead of engaging civil society in Egypt and the moderates, the policy of the administration led to the control of the presidency of all these institutions by extremist ideologies, by brotherhood views. And let me be very clear. The idea is not that the brotherhood should not be doing politics, of course, everybody. But the idea is to allow those who are weaker, those who are less funded, those who have been suppressed for so long, including civil society, women, cops, middle class, labor union in Egypt, to have part of the system. Sudan was covered, and I'm going to add one point about Sudan. The Obama administration inherited from a previous administration, from the Bush administration, the framework of an agreement. And there were moments before January of last year where there were pressures coming from the administration on both sides, including on the South. Maybe we could delay the referendum. Maybe we could push it a little bit. No. The referendum took place, Southern Sudan is free. The issue today is in northern Sudan, you have populations that are oppressed. And in northern Sudan, you have a leader, a Shah, who's the head of a regime, who is a worldwide war criminal. Where is the American policy on bringing him to justice? A Romney policy with regard, not just Sudan, but any war criminal, is to bring them to justice. Should it be Bashir of Sudan or Bashar of Syria? Same thing. There should be pressure with all the resources of the United States and its allies and civil societies in the region to make sure that the drive is toward democracy and human rights. That's the general idea. That's the general difference. And of course, there are so many things to cover. The election is not just about a different nuance in foreign policy. This is not even, Bush-Gore. This is way more than that. It's two different directions. And those who are convinced that the Middle East should go half to Iran and half to the Ikhwan and brothers, do your vote. Those who are convinced that we need to give a real shot to the societies in the Middle East that told us in the early stage of the Arab Spring, and I call early stage even before Egypt and Tunisia, when a Syrian revolution marches in Lebanon with 1.5 million people, males and females, across all sectors, when the 2 million people marches in Tehran, when the early waves in Tahrir Square are made of civil society, so was the case in Tunisia, when the early demonstrations in Libya were former bureaucrats, students, seculars, before the militias started their own work. When this Middle East is telling us we are ready to rise, we should be with them. So I hope that with your help, the help of your communities, we're going to make sure that every vote we can collect. I have never done a campaign in my whole American life, not even in the previous life, but this time it's really about the future of America, the future of freedom for Americans, but the future for freedom worldwide as well. I thank the organizers, I thank you for coming here, and God bless America, and let's hope to see on November the 7th a new president, Mitt Romney. Thank you.